Hi guys, it's Dr. Ken Nordberg back again. The last time I talked to you, I said I was going to start talking about hunting techniques, in particular those that are mature buck effective. So today is the day to start. One of 6 hunting methods we'll be talking about in the future. This one began, well actually the whole thing about mature buck effective hunting began in 1990, and it was a new hunting area for us. For various reasons we had decided to find a new study hunting area in the far northern part of Minnesota that year, and we scouted it quite a bit, but during previous years we were kind of hot shots with stand hunting, and we thought, well, gee, we're going to go in this new area, and these poor deer, they won't have a chance because we're experts at stand hunting. Well, we didn't see a decent buck for almost 2 weeks. Those bucks were not fooled by Nordberg tree stands, and it was we didn't get a deer until I decided I'm going to go back up there and try something different on the last day of the hunting season. And it was a long drive getting up there, and I had a long hike. I was going to hunt a feeding area I had found while scouting there 2 weeks before the hunting season began. A lot of red osier deer were on browse at that time, woody browse, and it looked really good, a lot of tracks there. But one thing I hadn't done, it was one of the last things I found, I didn't set up a tree stand there. And because we just got a new coating of snow out there, it was about 7 inches of snow on the ground, and I didn't want to sit on a wet log or a rock or something like that. So I decided to take a folding stool with me to sit on. And I took off in time to get there at first light. It was first light when I arrived at that, or just short of that feeding area. And there were a lot of trees in front of me, young evergreens, principally black spruce trees. And I could keep those between me and the edge of that feeding area by staying behind them all the way to a little outcropping. Maybe it was only about 4 or 5 feet high. A lot of rocky outcroppings up there, but this one had several young, well, about 6 foot tall spruces growing on top of it, which would make a perfect blind. And I remembered that before I got there, and so I was heading toward that little outcropping. And finally I got there and I got up on top of it, and I got my stool that I'd been carrying with one hand, and put it down on the top of that outcropping silently in the middle of those spruces. Perfect blind. And then I sat down. And at 7 o'clock, a doe and buck came out of a stand of spruces about 100 yards on my right and walked right down in front of me and stopped. And I dropped that buck with one shot about 20 yards from where I was sitting. And while I was field dressing it, I was thinking, you know, this is one of the easiest harvests of a big buck that I've ever had. You know, that I could carry that stool without any sound whatsoever. I could go anywhere I wanted with it, and in this case I put it into that little stand of spruces on the outcropping, perfect spot. And I was thinking, you know, if I had brought a tree stand, I have a lot of tree stands, different kinds, if I had brought that out there, it would have been pretty hard to carry that one all the way to that spot without it making some telltale sounds, particularly when the kind I probably would have brought used a chain to chain it to the trunk of a tree. And that doggone chain would rattle once in a while, and there's nothing like a metallic rattle to tip off deer that here comes a human. And then if I got there, there was no trees. I was looking around, gee, no big trees around this area where I could have put out a tree stand. And I would have had to move quite a way to the right or left, and then if I had moved in the direction where those deer were, that would have been the end of my chance to take that particular buck. Well, in this case, I didn't have that problem. I could just put that stool wherever I wanted, wherever there was decent cover that would hide my body. It didn't have to hide my head because I always put a camel head net over my head when I'm stand hunting, and a camel cap on top of that. But anyway, very easy to find a good spot to sit when you're sitting on ground level with a stool. I was up high enough so it would have been like being in a tree stand, but it doesn't have to be high for that to work out. But gee, that worked out really well, you know. And then I was thinking, you know, a tree stand like that, or a stool like that, could be carried anywhere at any time of the day, any time I wanted to, and go to a spot to hunt deer and find an easy spot to sit anytime I wanted. It gave me unlimited mobility for stand hunting, and you know, that's amazing if it keeps working like it did that morning, and it could be done silently, and wherever, you know, one of my prerequisites for a place to sit has always been for many years, it's got to be within easy shooting distance of very fresh tracks and or droppings, or maybe a really freshly made or renewed ground scrape. It has to be close by. And those are signs that tell you you're in an area that's being frequented by a big buck right now. And chances are he's going to be coming back to this area later today or tomorrow morning. And it works so often. That really happens often. And so a stool like that was giving me a door, an open door to hunting all those kind of places without having to do a lot of preparation. I had to do no preparation whatsoever when I used that stool in that particular spot. And that's really great too, you know, no pre-season work needed to do that except for scouting, of course. But anyway, I decided I'm going to do some more of this. And the following year, I made myself a stool. And here it is. You know, this thing is almost 30 years old now, and it looks kind of ugly. But I don't know, I think the uglier it looks, the better it fits in. You know, the better it is for buck hunting because it's hardly noticeable. But I made this framework from an oak plank for a 1/4 inch, oak plank about 3 feet long, ripped all these pieces to make the legs. And it's got some things about it that are different than a lot of stools you see nowadays that are made with tubular metal of some kind. Well, the metal, if it hits a tree while you're walking in the woods, that sound is going to warn deer. You know, they know that there's nothing in the woods that makes a sound like that except a human hunter. And those little tubes, you know, if you're sitting on your stool, and those tubes kind of dig in back or in front, and depending on which way you're sitting on the stool, it gets to be uncomfortable after a while. So I made it, when I made these oak parts, I made it rounded on the inside so that when I'm seated on it, I don't have any sharp edges that are going to be digging into my bottom while I'm on there. The only thing I've had to do with this stool since I made it, so like I say, it's been almost 30 years, is replace this canvas top. And that's put on by gluing it between a couple pieces like this. See, 2 pieces going across here? And then putting a lot of screws in it. And that keeps that canvas top from slipping. But like I say, I made it, I even put plastic washers between the joints here where these things come together so it could be moved like this silently. And then I put a straps on there for carrying, and it's a single strap. I've got it screwed to this, underneath here to this back side so that when I put it on my back, it closes up like that. And then I don't need adjustments on the straps, it's made just for me. And so no adjustments needed. With that single connection behind me, it never wants to slide off my shoulders. It stays there and can be carried around without making any sound at all, and with a rifle on my shoulder. And So, well, now see, it just bumped against the chair, and you see what that sounded like? That was wood against wood. Now, if you happen to bump a wooden frame of a stool on a tree, that sound isn't automatically identified by nearby whitetails as a human sound. They hear wood bumping against wood all the time in the woods, especially in windy weather, or when maybe a buck bumps into a tree with his antlers. Now, my wife made me a pack sack for it, and this pack sack is big enough so I can stuff my hunting coat inside of it when I'm hiking any great distance to a stand, and that keeps me from perspiring when I'm hiking long distances. Anything else I need for the day, like water and field dressing tools and maybe emergency matches and things of that sort, a compass, maybe a grunt call. I don't use a grunt call much anymore. And then for deer hunting, for rifle hunting, I added this blaze or panel that hangs down and back, so somebody isn't going to think I'm a deer walking in the opposite direction. You'll see the blaze orange there. So anyway, I'll tell you what, this might not look like much, but today, or it has been for almost 30 years, my most valuable buck hunting tool. This tool has made it possible for me to take more mature bucks in the last 27 years now than all the rest of the years that I've been hunting whitetails, and I've been hunting them for 73 years. I couldn't have done it without this tool. This tool has made it possible. And let's talk about why that is. By the way, plans for making one like that, like the plans I use, the way I made it, are available in my website. Sometime when you get a chance, check on that if you want to make one of your own. It doesn't cost much, and if you make it with oak like this, it'll last you all the years you hunt whitetails. Yeah, I'm sure it will. Anyway, that's wonderful. And this thing is made for me. The lengths of the legs are just for me. Now, if you're a bigger guy with longer legs on it, that kind of thing. But what a wonderful tool this is for whitetail hunting, especially mature buck effective whitetail hunting. Now, why is it so good? Well, we kind of talked about it a little bit already. For one thing, it gives me uninhibited mobility. I can go anywhere in the woods without any previous preparation and put this thing down in natural cover that hides my silhouette, especially heavy cover behind me. That's is important of what's in front of you, but it hides my silhouette and hides any motions I might have to make when I'm raising a rifle or a bull when a whitetail is near. It enables me to always approach a stand site or feeding area or deer trail from downwind or crosswind. You know, when you got one tree stand out in the woods, or maybe two, if the wind's wrong, you know, if it's such that to get there you got to go downwind, you're stuck. If you do that, you're going to ruin that stand site right away. But with this, if I wanted to go to the stand site anywhere, and the wind isn't proper for going to that stand site in that way, I would either hunt somewhere else, which would be easy to do, or I would widely detour the area and come up onto the stand site from crosswind or downwind. And so I'm always crosswind or downwind from wherever I want to hunt. And that's important. You know, you can fool a whitetail's eyes, you can fool a whitetail's ears, but you can't fool a whitetail's nose. Once they get a whiff of you, they know exactly what you are, how far away you are, and even what you're doing. So you have to be really careful about being smelled by whitetails. But anyway, another thing that it does for me, it enables me to always sit within easy shooting range, downwind or crosswind, of very fresh tracks made by mature whitetails. Like tracks oh, measuring 3 5/8 to 4 inches in length, you know, sharply defined tracks that, you know, are very fresh, of a walking deer of that size. So you find 4-inch tracks of a deer, of a walking deer. That's a trophy buck. You know, wouldn't it be nice if you could be, if wherever you went in the woods and you had a stool like that on your back and you found tracks like that and was heading right over to this feeding area, it's right over there. That buck is probably there right now. And if you don't have a tree stand, you probably figure, oh, I can't hunt there, I gotta go to my tree stand that's way over there somewhere. And you miss the opportunity of a lifetime to take that buck because you can't stand hunt there. And just going out, walking over there and standing there in the woods, you can't do that for very long without a deer recognizing you. But with a stool like that, you can sit down with your back to a tree trunk and be really comfortable. And if you're in good cover, you can stretch if you need to, stretch your legs out, your arms, you know, keep alert and sit very still without discernible motion, not moving your head rapidly like that, but very slowly, you know, like that. Anyway, that means that I can always sit within easy rifle range of a trail or area, like a feeding area, that is currently being visited by a big buck. If you got a tree stand in the woods you picked out 2 weeks ago, how do you know whether there's going to be a deer there or not? If you got a bait site over there, and the deer in your area have become adjusted to dealing with hunters using bait by keeping away from bait sites during daylight hours. And older bucks do that real quickly. But you're kind of stuck. What do you do? Well, with a stool, it doesn't matter where you find those kind of signs, you're ready to go. You can take advantage of them. And that's one of the really good things about using a stool like this. So it's silent, easy to carry, it's safe, you know, a lot safer than being 20 feet up in a tree stand. No ladders or anything that you need, nothing like that. And believe me, this is not some goofy idea. A stool like this will put as many big bucks on your wall at home as anything else you can use. The best tree stand in the world, you can out-hunt anybody using a tree stand like that by using a stool like this at ground level, doing the kind of things I'm telling you about. I have 2 sons who always start every hunting season in tree stands. They grew up deer hunting in tree stands, and they just have a hard time trying to give it up. But usually by the 3rd day of a hunting season, that's when every buck in the woods, big or small, knows that they are again being hunted by humans, and they're starting to do all the things that they did in previous years to avoid hunters. That's why they're still alive. They know what to do whenever they find hunters, whether they're walking on the ground or sitting up in a tree. And you know, that's one of the things about stand hunting. There's a big advantage of that's provided by stand hunting. If you're sitting in a tree and a deer comes up behind you and smells you, or it's coming your way from this side, you didn't notice it, or you saw a glimpse of something, you're looking over there and it must not have been a deer, it went away. This sort of thing usually happens without the hunter's knowledge, actually, more than half the time. Well, maybe 75% of the time, at least. But whenever a mature whitetail discovers a hunter in a tree or on the ground, that's just sitting there, not moving around, whitetails nowadays recognize that hunter as a stand hunter. Now, they might not recognize the name, but they know, well, this is a hunter that just sits there for hours, a day at a time, maybe a whole week, the same spot, just keeps going on the same trail and going to the same spot all week. They don't pursue deer. Even if he sees me, he probably would never chase me around or come after me. It'll just stay there all the time, and maybe it'll leave in the middle of the day and come back, and then it'll be there all day until it gets dark, and then it'll leave again. And nothing to worry about. That's a harmless hunter as long as the deer keeps a safe distance away from you. And mature bucks do that all the time. When they discover a stand hunter, from that moment on, they will keep away from the area where they found the stand hunter. They'll keep 100 yards or so away from that hunter the rest of the hunting season. They won't abandon their range unless you shot at them. They won't abandon the range. They'll stay in their home range. Big buck's home range will be about a square mile in size, and they'll stay there the rest of the hunting season, even though he knows you're over here in part of his home range. And it'll keep its normal habits over there, doing all living a fairly normal and safe life without you realizing. You never see the thing because it's keeping away from you. But the good thing about that is, if you're a mobile stand hunter, a hunter who changes stand sites freely every half day, or every day at the least, that buck is going to have a heck of a time staying away from you. Sooner or later, then every time you move to a new stand site, 100 yards or more away from where you were sitting when the buck found you, sooner or later, that buck is going to end up close to you before it realizes that you're near, and you'll get him. Now, so these are all really big advantages of being a stand hunter, and more especially a stand hunter uses a stool at ground level. Now, let me tell you how we go about hunting with a stool. This hunting technique, by the way, that I'm telling you, we call it portable stump hunting. Back when I first began stand hunting back in the early 1960s, stand hunters were known as stump sitters. You know, you're a stump sitter. Actually, I didn't sit on stumps much because they weren't comfortable, most of them, and they were damp on top. And I usually sat on logs instead. You should have called me a log sitter. But we had no idea about where we should be sitting. We'd pick a spot and say, wow, this looks pretty good, you know, and there's a deer trail over there, and I'll or a deer been feeding out here, I'll watch from here. And it worked. We started taking big bucks when we started doing this, but not regularly, you know. It took me a few years before I finally took one big enough to put on the wall. And I was pretty proud of it. It was a nice 8-pointer. Since that time, I've taken an awful lot of big bucks that were much bigger than that 8-pointer. But at the time, that was a good one. But at any rate, so we were called stump sitters. And so when I came up with the idea of using a stool at ground level, I decided to call it, because you could move it around freely, a portable stump. And that's where the name comes from, portable stump hunting. Well, portable stumping hunting itself is fairly easy, but it takes a little pre-season preparation to make it work. And many years ago, when we started using stools regularly, we spent, and ever since then, we spend 3-4 days, sometimes more, every hunting season, 2 weeks before our hunting season begins, or 3 weeks, doing a lot of scouting. And what we're looking for is places to use our stools. Now, since, you know, by the 3rd day of a hunting season, every big buck in the woods knows, geez, we're being hunted again, and they're starting to do the things that made them survive previous hunting season. They get to be much more difficult to hunt, and they're more sensitive and more alert and tougher to hunt. And when we learn that one way to trip them up, keep them from having the advantage of knowing where you're sitting day after day, we started changing stand sites every half day to full day. Usually most often every half day we move. And boy, a buck just can't keep track of you if every time you move 100 yards or more out of the area that he's avoiding. You're back in business again. So I'm usually up in deer camp for 13 days every year. And gee, that means I could be using 26 stand sites during the hunting season. And I can, that's easy to do. But I don't look for stand sites to be used, well, the main stands that I look for when we're scouting are stand sites I'm going to use during the first 2 to 3 days of the hunting season. Those stand sites even though they were selected before, and even though I'm going to change stand sites every half day, after I've selected those are the ones I'm going to be thinking about every morning of each day before I head out into the woods for stand hunting. Their locations are kind of written in stone. The only thing that makes things different is wind direction. If the wind direction is wrong for the one I want to use and the trails I'm going to use to get there, well then I'll pick a different one, because I always got a selection that gives me a chance to approach a stand site from downwind or crosswind every half day of a hunting season. And so anyway, what I'm out there looking for is really special ones for the first 2 or 3 days. And like I'm talking about 5 or 6 stand sites that I'm going to use. And what I'm looking for is stand sites that don't require a lot of work to get ready. At ground level, it's sort of easy. You know, I don't have to cut branches, I don't have to do anything to get ready, I don't have to put up a ladder, stand site way up in a tree. But what I'm looking for is one that I can walk up to and put my stool down right there, and I got lots of good cover in front of me and the sides, and I got tall cover behind me, so my silhouette is not clear to any deer that are standing at ground level happen to look my way. They just aren't going to see me unless I'm really moving fast while they're looking in my direction or making noise. But at any rate, I'm looking for a stand site that requires little or no preparation. I have used a lot of stand sites over the years that all I had to do is stamp down some deep grass where I plan to sit, or scoop some leaves away with my boots and kind of clearing the area so it's kind of silent there if I have to move my feet. But all the cover I need is there, and that stand site requires little or no preparation whatsoever. And why is that important? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because bucks especially are really good. They're better than any other deer. They're the most elusive and wary and alert whitetails in the woods. And that's why they live to be the ages that they are and get to be big. And we've learned that older whitetails very readily spot construction, destruction, or recognize intense ground sense or trail sense in any one area made by a human. I mean, if you cut a lot of branches down and branches off the tree, and you got a lot of white ends of knobs on trees or branches that are laying on the ground, you suddenly made it look really different there. I mean, a big buck will come along and right away knows, boy, that's really different over there. And that's typical of stand sites of humans. They say, oh, this might be an ambush site for a human. And then if you make big changes, like you're going to build a blind, you know, and boy, we used to build lots of blinds in the old days, and we'd pile them up tall enough, logs and branches laying on the ground in the area, and pile them up so you were hidden all the way up to your chin. It didn't matter in your head because you'd have a camel head net and a camel cap on top of that. You didn't move it real fast. But at any rate, we'd pile them up like that, and we made a lot of those that didn't work worth a damn. Some of them, we got to be a little careful about that. What we would do, instead of creating a blind next to a feeding area, for example, we learned that if you made your blind 10, 20 yards back in the timber with a fair amount of stuff in front of it, they aren't very noticeable to whitetails. But after we got to the idea that, boy, you don't want a lot of construction or destruction or a lot of trail scent in any one area where you made a blind, we got away from building blinds like that. Now we just use natural, unaltered cover. Sometimes you have to snip off a few branches that are going to be in the way. You expect the buck to be right over there by that ground scrape or something, or using this trail going by here, or they're going to be out here feeding out in front of you about 10 yards away out in the open there where they're feeding in a clear cut or a farm field, something like that. but you want to be back in the woods. Well, anyway, and we don't cut shooting lines. Never do that anymore. We just use shooting windows, and we're excellent shots. And you don't need a great big wide lane to shoot a deer standing, 20 to 60 yards away. You don't need that. You just a little hole in the cover and use that hole. And sometimes you have to wait, or you have to lean to one side. Oh, there, now it's open. I can shoot the deer. It's got to be, if you do that, that blind or your stand sight is going to be far less noticeable to a big buck, and your odds of having a good, easy shot at that buck are much, much improved. Now, the other thing is I mentioned trail sense. Now, you know, let's imagine we found this spot. Oh, I like this spot, and there's a feeding area. So let's get this all fixed up. We'll put branches all around here, and we'll cut this over here and drag this stuff over here, and we'll put a ladder up in the tree, and the tree stand up in the tree. Well, all the while you're doing all this stuff, you're laying down trail scent. And human trail scent is readily smelled, and I've mentioned this before, readily smelled by whitetails, especially mature whitetails who have a lot of experience with this, for 4 days after you deposit it. And let's say you did that in an area the size of this room, and there's trail scent all over the place. Well, it doesn't take a very smart buck to realize there's something wrong here. There's an awful lot of trail scent in this area. I better stay away from there. I don't want to be around here anymore. You know, these guys that put out, and maybe you're one of them, and I'm not making fun of you, but let's say you have a food plot. I call them bait plots because there's hardly a food plot in America that isn't used to try to bait deer to a stand site. Well, a lot of guys get all excited. Gee, there's a big buck. They put up a camera, a trail cam on a tree trunk, and they come back, holy cow, look at the big buck. Oh, there's 3 of them that come out here on my turnips or my clover. Boy, I can't wait till the opening day. I'm going to get one of these bucks. Look at the size of that thing in the picture. You know, and so and then you're thinking, gee, you know, I wonder if he's going to keep coming back, or maybe there's more. You know, got to watch this. I'd really like to get some more pictures of that. So you go back every day and take the card out of your trail cam, put another one in there, and take that back and look at it on your TV set or computer. Oh, there he is. It's a lot of fun. And then, you know, if you're using bait, like some people, you know, they'll put a pile of corn out there or apples in the woods for the deer. Or you got one of these electronic feeders, you know, and you want to make sure it's kept full of corn, and you want to see, gee, are there tracks and droppings around here? You keep going back. Well, every time you do that, you're laying down more fresh trail scent. You're building a spot that is like an outhouse out in the woods as far as deer are concerned, because, you know, their noses are so sensitive. And it doesn't take much of a mature buck to realize this is getting bad. You know, that's one of the reasons all this trail scent that you're putting out there, and besides all the construction and destruction you might be making as well, makes it easy for older bucks to learn this is a place to stay away from. It doesn't mean they're going to abandon the country, but they aren't going to come close to this anymore during the rest of the hunting season. And that's one reason why trail cams aren't going to tell you where that buck is going to be, say, 2 days after the hunting season started, or a week later, or a month later. The trail cam, because so many things happen. Like the rut. The rut has a big effect on where whitetails are any day of the year from September to the first of the year, to January 1st, believe it or not. There are breeding-relating activities going on through that whole time, actually for 4 months and about 10 days into January. The whitetail rut, activities of bucks during the whitetail rut begin about September 1st. And the bucks are going through 5 different phases of the rut, during which they're doing different things in different places. And this is going on, it doesn't matter when you hunt them, whether early bow hunting, late bow hunting, muzzleloader hunting, firearm hunting. something is happening in the woods that's related to the rut. And, you know, I mentioned this before too, there are 3 separate 2-week periods during that 4-month and 10-day period that whitetails breed, or does breed. So there's always something going on. And each one of those new things that bucks are involved with during all that time greatly influences where they are on any one day during hunting season, and their habits, behavior, things like that. So deer hunting, of course, has a lot to do with where whitetails are on any one day. Those changes, the rut-related changes, are fairly predictable if you know them. You know what these things are going on during the rut. But changes that are made because of hunters being nearby, they can happen very suddenly and very often during the hunting season. And it makes it really hard to predict where whitetails, especially older bucks, are going to be on any one day all fall, September to the first of the year. And if you're stuck in one tree stand all fall, you know, or a whole bow hunting season or a firearm hunting season, you're using one tree stand, it looked really good when you found it for some reason or another. But where's the bucks? Where's the big bucks? How come I'm not seeing it? The same thing happened last year and the year before. What's going on out here? How did they do that? Well, you know, the rut can be causing that, weather can be causing it, but deer hunters certainly do a lot to make that happen. But when you're a stand hunter, that's not so bad because when they find you and you're just sitting there and you're not chasing deer around, walking around, well then you're a harmless hunter. You just have to stay away, like I mentioned a little earlier. And so all the while you're sitting there, that buck could be living a very nice, normal life just out of sight where you're sitting if you just keep sitting in one spot. Well, this cures that, you know? If you're changing stand sites every half day and always sitting within very easy shooting range of very fresh tracks or droppings, shiny droppings, or freshly made ground scrape made by a buck, or freshly renewed, with dirt scattered wildly over one side. I tell you, whenever I find fresh tracks of a walking deer 4 inches long, or very fresh droppings, clumps, usually buck droppings, usually clumped in the fall, with droppings that are 3/4 of an inch to 1 1/4 inches long, that's a big buck. He's going to go on the wall. Or a ground scrape, you know, there's snow all over the ground here, up here in northern Minnesota. Geez, there's dirt way over there, about 15, 20 feet away. Well, that was a mad buck. And he's a big one, there's no doubt about it. But, you know, the ground scrape 3-4 feet in diameter, and I've seen some 10 feet in diameter. I photographed one recently, it was about 15 feet long, about 3 feet wide. You see something like that in the woods that's freshly done, it looks like, geez, it was just probably done minutes ago. I don't walk away from those, no sir. If it's a trail, or if it's a trail leading into a feeding area, or just a trail with a ground scrape on it, that where that happened, I back off right away downwind and look for a spot where I got the kind of cover I'm looking for that needs no preparation whatsoever, and sit on my stool. Now, in the last 10 years, I've taken 3 bucks that way. I was heading to a different stand site. I wanted to go to this one over here about 1.5 miles away. Got an early start at 5 in the morning and going out in the dark with my flashlight. Gee, I see some tracks in the snow crossing my trail. The trail I'm planning to use, we only use deer trails to get to and from stand sites, but there's some fresh tracks up there. I get up a little close. Oh, those are fresh. Look at that. They're just really fresh tracks. And he's just walking. And he's heading the stand site, he's going over this way. Fresh drop. I've taken quite a few bucks with no more deer sign than just one clump dropping I'll be out there scouting in the woods, and I'll come along a trail. I'm walking on this deer trail and looking around, and gee, there's some really fresh droppings right up ahead here, and clump maybe that big, and you look at it, holy cow, there's 1-inch droppings in there and all shiny, and they're all kind of stuck together. Sometimes that's all it takes for me to decide, I gotta hunt here. And if I'm going out to a stand site early in the morning and I come along, oh my, look at those are really fresh. And you think, well, now I wonder where that deer, there's a feeding area right over this way. It's gotta be there right now. And so, rather than just keep going on the same trail, I'll back off and make a circle around and come up on the feeding area in another area where I'm sure that the buck is not going to smell me, and there's good cover over there because I saw it earlier when I was scouting, and I'm going to go sit over there. There's a nice spruce clump over there where I can watch this open area. Well, anyway, and what really gets me is when I'm doing that and I'm walking along and I look, oh man, there's a ground scraper, and look at the dirt all over the place. I'm going to show you some pictures during this sequence of those kind of signs that I've been just talking about. But sometimes when I find those, I've taken 3 bucks, I should have taken 4 in the last 15 years, big ones that are on the wall now. When I came up to a ground scrape like that, just renewed. You know, it's way in December, and they started making those way back in mid-October. This was a different kind of a deal here, a very special ground scrape. And I'll talk to you more about that some other time. But these are the kind of signs I'm looking for. And if I find that when I'm on the way to a different stand site when I had mine, I'll back off down or crosswind, get into some good cover, maybe 25 yards away, and sit down and be quiet. And when I find a ground scrape like that, it doesn't take long usually. There's one that I had to wait 4 hours. But most of the time, I had one that showed up in 15 minutes after I sat down, and I got it. So, I was 10 feet away when I opened my eyes. I had fallen asleep at my stand, and there I was, opened my eyes, and there was looking right at me. And I didn't dare move, but all of a sudden I couldn't stand anymore. I blinked my eyes, and holy cow, did he go! 2 jumps, and he was disappeared through some big evergreens, and snored a few times, and I never saw that buck again. But he was a dandy, and boy, could he jump high. But anyway, this deer hunting is so darn much fun, isn't it? But anyway, the point I'm making, a stool like this can put you close to really big bucks all the time, more times than you realize it until you're out there. Like when you're going to a stand site, boy, I can't wait to go up to that grassy opening out there, back over in that leased area, because there's a big buck hanging around there, and you come up to a ground scrape like that, and oh no, as far as I'm going this morning, and you back off. It's paid off so many times. But let's say you're some other guy here, you got a stand over here, and boy, you can't wait to get that stand. Boy, that looked like a good one when you were scouting here for not a very good reason, maybe, because you didn't pay attention. If it didn't have fresh deer signs there of any kind, buck signs, big ones, big tracks, big droppings, antler rubs, ground scrapes, things like that. If they aren't there, that wasn't a good spot. It's just a good spot for you. You thought, oh, I can see them way over there. I'll be able to shoot deer way over there and way over there and over that. That's a terrible place to hunt big bucks. But if you always make it a rule to sit near very fresh signs made by big buck-sized ground scrapes, then you're a buck hunter. You are, my friend, as long as you aren't easy to spot or hear or smell. So, anyway, one of the other things I should have mentioned is that, no stand site is, what makes a stand site is a good approach trail. And one of the prerequisites of a good stand site is lots of cover, so you can sneak into your stand site without making a lot of noise and without being seen. And a lot of my stand sites have a big high ridge. It might be down the end of it, and the feeding area is over on the other side of the ridge, and I can walk all the way to the stand site without deer in the feeding area seeing me in the morning. That's a real good one. We've got several places like that, and I've taken big bucks hunting at places like that. One of them at a place that we used to call, got all logged out, but Horseshoe Valley, it was that kind of a place. That was a 13-pointer I got at that one. But at any rate, and that was the deal, walking through using a stool. I sat it down behind a big trunk of a big spruce tree, and I just kind of peek around it. And after the sun came up, a doe and fawn come walking down right beside me, and this buck come along a little bit behind it, big 13-pointer, big high antler. And then instead of following the doe and fawn to where they went, it turned to its left and started heading away. And it got into a little opening there. It didn't need much of an opening, like I say, if you're a good shot, for heaven's sakes. Big scope on your rifle. And one shot, down he went. And so anyway, that's the kind of things that happen when you're using a stool, you know. Now, you might think, you know, it's kind of crazy. I've been hunting for 20 years now, and I never see bucks like that all over the place. This guy must be full of crap. That just can't be the way it is. Well, I'm sorry. It is the way it is. Until you start doing something like what I've been telling you about, and using stand sites the way I've been telling you about, and taking quick advantage of very fresh signs made by big bucks, you can't be a regularly successful stand hunter. Now, what I've taught you here today about this stool and portable stump hunting, this portable stump, is a darn good way to take mature bucks every year. It is. It's that good. I get letters from hunters all the time. I just got one recently from a hunter in northern Wisconsin who thanking me for what I taught him about portable stump hunting. And he says he's got all kinds of 11-pointers. He said they're all 11-pointers on his walls to prove it. And thanking me for what I taught him over the years. And he read all my books and reads all my magazine articles, things like that. So this is the truth. Now, this is a very easy form of mature buck effective whitetail hunting. All it requires is, well, let's see, to start with good scouting, good knowledge of at least some deer signs. You need knowledge about that. You need to be able to get to your stand site without alarming deer in the vicinity. That's another thing you got to be able to do, without being seen or heard or smelled. Those are important. And you need a stool. And if you got those, you're going to be a buck hunter before you realize it. Someday, too, you too will be sending me a nice email thanking me for teaching what I just told you. But this is a simple way to do it. One of 6 ways that I'm going to teach you. So, there you go. Now you know all about it. and thank you guys for coming. I got one more thing to show you. I wasn't going to even talk about books today. I don't want to be selling books every time I talk to you. I don't want you to think I would have to do something like that. But a few days ago, I published a new book. It's a companion book to my deer book. You know, my Whitetail Hunter's Almanac 10th edition. And the kind of book that someday you're going to say it's the best darn hunting book you ever bought for deer hunting. But this is the same thing. This is my 5th edition of my famous bear book. A book that hunters for years have been saying is the Bible for bear hunters, for a Bible for taking trophy class bears, big bears over 300 pounds. It's a step-by-step guide to taking bears that weigh 300 to maybe 800 pounds. This picture on this cover, that's an 800-pound bear, believe it or not. It really is. It was killed, and that's how I found out it was 800 pounds. But at any rate, it's a book for taking trophy class black bears, and it's an updated book. It's you know, black bears over the years, when I first started hunting them back in the 1970s, well, here's my first bear book. This is my first bear book, and you see what size it is, and that was the Bear Hunter's Bible for decades. And if you bought the book and you followed the directions, you got a bear, automatic. And a lot of them were big bears. A lot of guys get so excited when a 150-pound bear comes up, a sub-adult, and they, oh my, look at that bear, and he looks so big, and they get him. After a while, if you keep bear hunting, it gets to be a habit forming because it's so darn exciting. But then you start thinking you want to get bigger bears, so then you start following instructions for getting bigger bears. Well, the bigger bears have been getting smarter over the years, and whitetail hunters have figured out all kinds of ways, or bear hunters, to screw up. All kinds of new ways to screw up. And so because of that, each time I decided to reprint the book, rather than just reprint it, I said, geez, I need to bring this thing up to date. I need to revise it. So each one has been a revision. And this is, I'm pretty sure, is my final revision. It's one heck of a bear book. I am proud I'm the author of this book. It's really a good book. And if you ever get a chance to go bear hunting anywhere from California, an 800-pounder was recently taken I think it was South Carolina, of all places. And there was one like that taken a year ago or 2 years ago now in California, of all places. So there's big bears all over the country, but they're tough to hunt. I mean, to match wits with them, you need to know a lot of things. And this book tells you all the things you got to do, and this is all up to date. Nordbergs are still hunting bears, and we know the new problems that have come along, like problems with wolves. Wolves can really screw up your bear hunting. Lots of things. But, or ATVs can do it. Well, you guys that love to run around in ATVs, that'll break your heart, I know. But if you want a big bear, you're going to have to think a little differently about that, at least till you get it. But anyway, there's a lot to learn. Now, with this book, you know, I used to put on a school, buck and bear hunting school, years ago, and my son John created a video, a DVD, with all kinds of footage that was put together at one of my most recent buck and bear hunting schools. And this thing is loaded. It's got, there's what, how long? 3 hours of photos and instructions for how to properly field dress a bear, and how to build a bait crib, and how to set up positioning bait, and what your stand should look like and where it should be, and all kinds of things. Bear signs that tell you what, you know, these are live things that are done in the woods. Well, anyway, like I was telling you, when you know, in my buck and bear hunting schools, my son John put together this video. And how much did it cost?
$24.95.
The video?
The 2-disc DVD school, a hunting school, and it's $24.95.
Okay, 2 discs, 3 hours and 35 minutes. That's the whole thing about bear hunting from my hunting schools. And that's $24.95? Okay. That's not in addition to this book. Well, a number of years ago, I created a bear book, my 3rd edition for Apple. And it's been selling on Apple iTunes for quite a few years now. And it was kind of a fun book to put together because all the photography and even videos in it, you put videos in an ebook, were all in color. And it was a fantastic set of videos that came with the book. You could get your ebook and turn a page, and there would be a picture there, and you put the picture, and all of a sudden you're live in the woods with me, and we're talking about all these things that we teach about bear hunting on that video. And then a while later, we came up with a 4th edition to be sold on Amazon. Now, on Amazon, we couldn't use videos, And so what we created then is a bear book, a black and white bear book. But if people wanted to see all this, the videos that we put into that third edition, plus all kinds of photography and other things in there, they could buy that separately to go with the book. And the book then, without all that stuff, was $9.95, and that video was $9.95. Well, now then we came up with this book. Now this is a black and white book too. It's just loaded with photography and instructions on how to hunt bears, especially big bears. And we thought, you know, it would be really nice to have the complete package for hunters, to offer that same extra video that we did for the fourth edition to the hunters that buy this book. With this book, you get that $9.95 video that went with the other book, the fourth edition. You get it free with this one. So when you order the book, you get this video with all this color photography and videos that went with the fourth edition or the third edition, free. So you can't do better than that. So anyway, but we do have this one. This is the hunting school video. And that one, like I say, that's something that you spend a good long evening going through this thing and learning from that. And that's from my hunting schools years ago. I did that for about 25 years. More fun, because half the time we spent in the woods where I hunt bears and wolves. And well, I don't hunt wolves, but I hunt them with a camera, and bears and whitetails. And it's in here, all that. It's on the spot in the wood stuff. It's really a good video to have, so that's to go along with the best book on bear hunting ever written. So there you go, guys. And you can find information about this book and the video and the videos that we have, the DVD, like this school video DVD, on my website, Nordberg on deerhunting.com. Go to that, you'll find everything on there. And then you can even get to my YouTube presentations, which this is one. This is going to be on there via that website, and Twitter and blogs. I write blogs a lot, sometimes every day for long stretches about hunting. And anyway, like I said earlier, it's nice to talk to you again. Hope you enjoyed this presentation, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. And I'll tell you all about another really good mature buck way to take big bucks. With that, now, goodbye for now.